Hey everyone, I'm going to review Echo. I'm going to review all 5 episodes in one video because I feel like it's not really worth doing one video at a time because it's really isn't anything for me to. It's not really worth doing one video at a time for something like this. I'm gonna do this differently, so I'm gonna just speak on the microphone. I'm trying to talk about each episode individually. Not a very short episode. 4 is my favorite out of 5. It's all with the background knowledge of where Echo has been through, of how she got to where she is when her comes to her career path and her personal life. And throughout each episode, Maya's ancestors' story is shown to show us to understand where she's been through her generational path in her bloodline. So that's something that we have more detail on for each episode. We start with the cave falling down and them saving themselves, and then there's something weird with the fact that they end up with clothes and the ending of the scene, which was a weird way to go with that. Anyways, let's continue. We start with a young version of Maya and her parents alongside her cousin Bonnie and her grandma, and throughout this we see them get along, and she has a real fun time with her cousin playing in the tent and in the rain. And there was something along the lines of the fact that she was interested in getting hot chocolate, so her mom would and her go out in the rain and try to get one in the store, and then she ends up getting a car accident, which ends up killing her mom and at the same time slicing her right leg. So it's just how we introduced to her being amputated. And then throughout this episode we have a rundown of a little bit of back story, the speed one of what she's been through in the Hawkeye series with her father, and the fact that Kingpin set a trap, that fact that Hawkeye ended up killing her father because he was one at the time. And there's a lot of history with Maya and Wilson, the fact that Wilson wanted her to work for him, and she does her first couple of missions, and she ended up facing Daredevil at some point, and those two characters, they fight, and we see them putting their punches a bit and not really doing all ad as much as they want to go through. And then after she faces Daredevil, continue with the speed run to the point where she shoots Kingpin, thinking that he's dead, and then 5 months later, which is in the MCU timeline, in May 2027, she's out there near her hometown in Oklahoma, and she ended up getting shot. And I looked back at the episode to see who probably shot her, and no one that we seen on screen shot her. She just ended up being shot with a bullet. We don't know who or why. She ends up going to this roller skating rink in her hometown, where she sees her friend Henry, who can help her, and apparently there's a bounty on her for, quote, killing Kingpin. And some people who worked for Kingpin or someone who know of Kingpin knew that he is dead, yet at the same time he's not really dead. It's weird that Maya shoots Kingpin and thinking that he's dead and doesn't confirm it, or no one else working for Kingpin confirms that he's dead. Everyone assumes that he's dead, so there's a bounty for her, so they just run along with it. But Shaggy knowing that he's in a hospital where his eye is all bandaged up, and who put him there? That's weird how they approached that. Right, episode 2 goes back to her house where she grew up in Oklahoma, and her cousin Biscuits helps her out by making her feel comfortable and letting him know basically what everyone's been up to in the family that is there. And she ends up wanting to do a little mission with a train, and she needs some things from him, and the fact that her grandpa has a thrift store, so Biscuits goes to the thrift store, gets some stuff for her, and she destroys an armory train car where Wilson's guys have like a bunch of weapons for. It's basically a shipment for them. So in this episode we saw with another ancestor where the person was playing a serious game to keep her land, because it's something about the winner is to keep the land, and the team that loses has to leave. So she ends up winning, and then there's some new information that's inside Maya's mind when she daydreams something about her ancestors, and her hands end up glowing, and she ends up doing her mission successfully, planting something on the train within the armory, and then she tries to leave, but then her amputated leg gets crushed, so she ends up reuniting with Biscuit, who followed her because of the tracker, and then she eventually goes to the thrift store and sees her grandpa and asks him to make another leg for her, and he makes a temporary one for her. In the meantime, then she sees a figure of a woman that she somehow is thinking about, and it's the lady from the first episode who rescued everyone from the cave, and her grandpa tells a bit of history about her. So Bonnie's a firefighter, and we know that from the first episode because when Maya was on her way to her house, she saw Bonnie, who's a firefighter. So Biscuits is talking over the radio to sell his stuff, and Bonnie hears him and they talk to each other, and he spills the beans on the fact that Maya's in Oklahoma, or something that Maya doesn't want Bonnie to know. That was such an episode was okay. I like the transitions that she had with her grandpa, and there was some stuff there that was really useful. Something about this episode that I liked was when she was talking to grandpa about the woman in the cave, and her cousin Biscuit helping her out was he was well helping this episode. He went out of his way to risk his grandma's truck for being there for her, and it's a lot of stuff that, it's a big risk for him, and that's something that Maya should doesn't really take him for entirely, so she does all these risky things, and she didn't even say thank you to him. Also, a big highlight was Maya talking to her grandpa about the woman in the cave, and the fact that she saw the figurine in the thrift store. That was something that was really important to Maya to understand a little bit of her ancestry background, even her roots. This is the episode where Henry and Vicky are the first gain with her, and Vicky kidnaps her and ends up fighting, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in this episode where the fight choreography was actually better than it was in the first episode, yet there were some parts in the editing that was noticeable in a way, and Bonnie also tries to go to the skating rink to try to open the door. She ends up going back, she gets kidnapped, and then Henry's also kidnapped as well, because Vicky has the people who in New York who were on the train when Maya ended up causing the explosion in the warehouse. It ends up going bad for them, which makes them want to have Maya, and then end up in the favor. She ends up fighting them, and she ends up leaving because the dude got called to not hurt Maya. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I know why Maya didn't check to see if Wilson was dead or not. If he was 100% dead, she knew that she should have approached the train mission differently, or certain things in her town differently. She should have had confidence in the idea of that. She wouldn't have Wilson on her tail. The thing that was interesting is that it didn't really affect her too much. She was surprised at the idea of it when she saw him in near her house and right above while Bonnie and Maya were both trapped in a skein wink. Bonnie wanted to know why those two drifted apart, and Maya and her basically come to this conclusion that they didn't really drift apart per se. She had to go because her father took her to New York, and Bonnie wants to reconnect with Maya, and Maya promises to, and Bonnie's unsure on the fact that she can keep her promise, and that's something that Bonnie will have to hope for. Maya goes back into the skein wink to talk to Henry about why they were let go free, and they have an assumption that Kingpin could be alive, which is surprising for Maya because she tells him that she shot him, and then she ends up wanting to go home, and she ends up seeing Wilson, and the fact that, like I said in the beginning of the video, what if Maya could have checked to see if he was really dead or anything like that. She could have moved on, and she could have done the stuff that she wanted to do with the train without worrying too much. With the 100% knowledge of Kingpin being dead. In the middle of the episode, we see that her grandpa made her a new prosthetic leg, and she wears it, and he carved it into something that has her heritage background into it, and she ends up loving it. So in episode 4, we have more depth between Kingpin and Maya. Wilson has his men make Maya wear contact lens so her and Wilson can communicate with each other privately without needing an AOS interpreter, because that's something that Wilson wants to. He only trusts Maya and no one else, and he wants to eat with her, and he tells him about his father and how he died, and the story of the hammer that we are aware of because of the double series where we had that knowledge of. And yes, it's official that the Netflix stuff is now canon. The MCU is now, it's part of that story within the MCU here. Later in the episode, in the post office, that Grandma meets Wilson, and they talk about a powwow festival. So keep in mind that Kingpin actually wanted to leave, but then he decided to stay because he wanted to have Maya with him on his way back to New York. So he's trying to go out of his way to convince her one last time to come with him, and the grandmother and Wilson are just talking about Maya, yet the grandma doesn't realize that Maya is also his niece, so that's something that isn't come into her mind yet. I believe that's something that Wilson has sense of, and it makes sense why the grandma doesn't know that that's his uncle, because when Maya's dad took him to New York, she ended up having basically kept it to herself there, including his family there, so it makes sense why she doesn't know who Wilson is. Anyways, they talked about the powwow festival. I feel like that's the point where he has the idea of using that festival to lower Maya back into him. Maya and her grandmother have daydreams about their ancestors individually, and Henry takes Maya in towards her grandma in to her house so they can talk to each other about what's going on, since she's been avoiding her grandma all this time since she's been there, and they end up talking about her ancestors, her mom, and her powers, and all the stuff that she is dealt with in her life. And her grandma mentions that her powers echoes through generations within all these things within their bloodline, basically, and that's something that Maya has new information. She still turns away from her grandma, which really upsets her grandma, yet her grandma is also sewing something for Maya. There's a lot of stuff that Maya isn't really open with her grandma. It feels like whenever Maya needs something, other characters push her for that path, so she'd have that knowledge, and whenever Maya wants something, she ends up getting the information, yet she isn't satisfied with how she got or why she turns away and feels more closed off than usual. I feel like with Maya, I feel like she's a type of character that feels closed off, because whenever she wants something, she gets information and she turns away from the people who drive away to provide her the information and listen if she would listen to it. Bonnie is really saying overall is that Bonnie wished that those two we could not. I'm using Bonnie for example because Bonnie is the one who I feel like is someone who used to go out of her way to want to reach out towards Maya throughout her life, and growing up Maya didn't respond to any of her emails or texts or anything like that. So when Maya was approached with the things said to help her, it sounds like Maya's using her family. I understand that sounds harsh and it's a little too much yet. I believe that's the case because I believe that is someone who is close off would do if they would just want something and have someone and then never look back. I feel like there are points where she ends up reconnecting with them later in the next episode yet. I feel like that's because she feels like she was not forced, I want to say forced, also had to for Bonnie. Even though we did about that, we get a flashback with Maya talking with her mom and where she heals the woodpecker keeping kidnapped Maya's grandma and Bonnie, who was supposed to be at the powwow festival to have Maya see him once again, basically lower Maya, Henry, and Biscuits. Try to find out what's going on in the festival we're going. Or since guys, because since things are suspicious and that Grandma and Bonnie weren't there when they were supposed to be. Maya goes to confront Kingpin, and her, Bonnie, and the Grandma end up having the ability to use their powers. And by the way, this is the only time her Grandma used her powers. She never used them or showed her hands glow in the previous episode when she was talking to Maya about the powers. Yeah, that's weird how they push that. Maya sees what keeping a secret lane with because she's able to somehow she has the ability to know how to use her powers even though no one told her how. She sees that keeping a secret lane within because of his past and tells him that he can let go of the pain, which confuses him and eventually leaves. He doesn't seem like he wants to let it go. So the fact that she was able to use her powers out of nowhere confused Wilson. I would be confused too if she just knew how to do that out of nowhere. He leaves Oklahoma right after that. Maya ends up going with her family. It's sad in the end of the episode because she wants to keep her promise to Bonnie on reconnecting, and everyone else is also there. And yet, it felt throughout the season that that's not what she really wanted to do. She felt that that's what she needed to do versus what she wanted to do because she pushed herself away from her grandma, for example, when she spoke about her family. She really wanted to know why she was daydreaming. Plus, I understand that Henry took her to see her grandma. She didn't decide to go see her. I feel like she just wanted to go to Oklahoma to do business. She didn't want to weaken with anyone. She didn't knew that Biscuits was the beater. She didn't know that her family was dragged into this and something that she wasn't really careful with the stuff that she was doing. And when Maya went to Oklahoma to do her business, to handle the armory thing, the train, and do all these things, we could have done so without having Biscuits' help. And by the way, this isn't Biscuits' fault. Her accepting the help from him is what made her family get dragged into this mess in the first place. And think about how the train mission she did would have been differently if she didn't have Biscuits' help, and everything along the way after that happened because she accepted her family's help, and not only that, she was closed off too. So not only that, everyone was trying to approach her because they care for her, and essentially shut them out along the way, especially when she was doing business. That's a dangerous move for Maya right there, because she is putting others that she didn't want to put in harm's risk, especially Henry and Bonnie in a roller skating rink when Vicky kidnapped them. In New York, the trap that she set exploded. It makes no sense how they would think it was Maya at all. Why would they immediately point fingers at Maya? They would probably assume someone else first, realistically speaking, right? I feel like the other characters, that within Maya's family made episodes with watching. I feel like they have a lot more character than Maya. I feel like we didn't really learn nothing new with Maya other than she wanted to do things herself, and I didn't really end up really caring for Maya in the end. I feel like the only times you would really understand her was when she interacted with Wilson and the bond that he had with her, wanting to trust her no matter what. That's a promise that he kept and was loyal towards, and that's something that Maya wasn't loyal towards. Even though Wilson did some harsh stuff like killed a ASL interpreter because they don't want anyone to know about what those two are discussing. Seeing the torture and the background was interesting. I did enjoy that. I enjoyed learning more about what they do and drawing Maya's bloodline. The show was nice to watch. And I didn't have any interest in seeing it again for a while. I believe there's a lot of stuff that was inconsistent with how they approached this. Maya's grandma was told to listen to Maya and to listen to she had to say, and apparently that's something that Maya should have been told as well. There's a lot of stuff that Maya could have done that would better if she would have actually listened and understood her family reasonings for being there for her. The fact that she's closed off and it made it difficult for her to listen to other characters within her family, so that made things really difficult for us to root for her. I feel like she just wanted to be in and out into her mission, so that's something that I really noticed within Maya. What do you think about this season? If you like the character Maya, what is it particularly that you liked about her was something that she is actually has done for herself and others that you may see her as likable. If you want the character to be likable, they have to have the traits of that, and I honestly didn't really see much of that within Maya here, and there's a lot of things that happen within this story involving Wilson that made him more loyal. I don't really think that Wilson was really a villain here. I feel like he was trying to be there for Maya in his own way, his own perspective of being a father figure for her, because in his perspective he's all that's left for Maya. Even though we know that she has other family members in Oklahoma, it's still something that Wilson sees within himself. He sees himself as Maya's parental guardian in a sense, and that's something that I really liked about Wilson, is that he actually put in the effort to be there for Maya, and that's something that a lot of people would see within Wilson when it comes to him, because he does love her as family, because he treats her like family in the best way he possibly could. When it comes to the show being a Marvel spotlight, it felt like it did the best it did with standing out on its own. That to recap a couple things within Hawkeye, within this show, to have the audience understand Maya's path in the beginning with her and Wilson. Yet I feel like that was done really well. This show didn't really feel like it needed a mature rating. It didn't really felt like there was anything with that type of rating for it. I understand why they wanted to do it. I'm glad they did, just that it didn't really feel like they pushed the limits on this show when it comes to the rating aspect of it. I'm also used as son. I love stories of other characters that may have love and appreciate them in a shorter amount of time. For example, Corey, recently we got introduced to a new character there in What Event. I enjoyed that character really well. So maybe Marvel should really take notes on being really consistent with their characters, so that way it'll help them within the storyline as well. I understand why they wanted to make a show about Maya even. I do appreciate it. I just that I prefer if there was something about the character that had progression that made us enjoy the character a little bit more, and actually have her be more open or willing to do other things outside of her comfort zone to interact with the people that want to interact with her, you know. Thank you for watching my Echo review. I appreciate it. My voice was a little lost today, but I did my best. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. I'll see all of you for the next one. I appreciate all of you, even though this is all one video instead of 5. And I feel like that was the best decision to do so. I appreciate all of you for watching. I'll see all of you for the next one. Take care. Bye.